Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Tobacco smoke and the scent of aging parchment hang heavy in the air of a decade defined by the electric charge of revolution. In the early 1960s, on campuses from Berkeley, a new generation is questioning the old order, and in Langley, this is viewed with both terror and opportunity. To the CIA, a charismatic student leader isn't just a protester. They are a high-value asset in the making. You are standing in the wood-paneled office of a prestigious university in Paris. The walls are lined with leather-bound volumes, but the most important document in the room is a travel grant application resting on the mahogany desk. You are a talent spotter, an academic who receives a discreet stipend to identify students whose ideological trajectory aligns with the agency's long-term goals. You find yourself peering into a hidden world of social grooming where the soft amber glow of a desk lamp catches the dust motes of a long-forgotten archive. This faculty lounge carries the weight of decades of academic ambition, the air circulated by a slow ceiling fan that keeps the secrets of the university in a constant low hum. Beneath your feet, the polished oak floors carry the weight of thousands of footsteps, each one representing a potential future being quietly evaluated. You watch as a senior professor carefully opens a confidential dossier on a student no older than 20. With the steady hand of a master strategist, they highlight a specific nuance in a handwritten essay, and suddenly a stream of private insights began to flow toward the agency's analyst. You are observing the moment an individual's potential is quietly redirected, ensuring that their academic journey and their eventual career both serve the same hidden objective. The magnitude of this human engineering project is immense. As you walk through the administrative corridors, the vast rows of brass-handled filing cabinets represent a physical map of the world's future leadership. Every grant request and thesis proposal acts as a window into the psyche of a student in London, a poet in Cairo, or a radical in Tokyo. You feel the pull of this vast institutional net as it gathers the raw energy of the youth and begins to refine it. You aren't just an observer, you are part of the front end, a mentor sitting at the crossroads of human potential, deciding which sparks of brilliance are benign and which are threats before the student has even declared a major. Inside this quiet office, a trusted dean is silently bleeding the truth. Every personal essay, every recommendation letter, and every private ambition passing through this academic node is being mirrored in the archives. You perceive the staggering momentum of countless individual futures converging in this space, an overwhelming flood of youthful conviction and unspoken agendas. You aren't just an architect of education, building an ivory tower that catches every rising star. To your left, a case officer monitors a psychological assessment, its pages a blur of personality scores and social selectors. The setting is one of academic excellence masking total manipulation. On one side of the desk, the private dreams of the youth. On the other, the sifting algorithms of a ghost in the university. You watch as the officer flags a leadership signature in less than a second. This is the operational reality of MKNEW, a project that treated youth intellectualism as a manageable resource. This wasn't just about spying on students, it was about social engineering on a global scale. In the quiet corridors of power, the agency was mastering developmental recruitment to ensure that when these students became the decision makers of tomorrow, they would already be assets of yesterday. The scholarship is the hook. This is the heartbeat of the student underground, the high-stakes influence where the future of nations is decided in a freshman seminar. Why MKNEW? The reason for this designation lies within the agency's Technical Services Division's cryptonym system. The MK diagraph was historically used to indicate the most sensitive, often behavior-focused projects. While other MK projects focused on chemistry or technology, the new suffix was specifically designated for new generation influence and the novel recruitment of youth populations. It signaled a shift in strategy from recruiting established adults to cultivating new assets from the ground up during their most formative years. Before we examine these student spies in detail, we must look at the mechanical structure that allowed the agency to turn a classroom into a field office. MKNEW utilized cutout foundations to fund international student conferences without disclosing agency involvement. The project provided operational funding to the National Student Association for nearly 2 decades. MKNEW utilized academic liaisons, professors who were paid to report on the political leanings of their students. The project created travel bureaus that offered discounted trips to student leaders in exchange for post-trip debriefings. MKNEW utilized psychometric testing disguised as career aptitude exams to identify high-potential recruits. The project infiltrated youth festivals in Soviet bloc countries to identify pro-Western dissidents. MKNEW used publishing fronts to distribute pro-democratic literature to student groups in the Third World. The project facilitated leadership seminars where agency officers observed student interactions through one-way mirrors. Scholarship traps involved providing full funding for degrees in exchange for a commitment to government service later in life. MKNEW maintained a master file of the social connections of every major student leader in Europe. The project used English language programs as a front for ideological assessment in developing nations. MKNEW utilized expatriate student associations to monitor the activities of foreign students in the U.S. The project used cultural exchange programs to place undercover officers as visiting lecturers. MKNEW coordinated with the Ford Foundation on educational development projects that had intelligence objectives. The project utilized subtle indoctrination curricula designed by psychological warfare experts. MKNEW recruited student journalists to act as information gatherers on campus. The project used summer internship programs as a testing ground for potential long-term assets. MKNEW influenced the election of pro-Western candidates in student government elections. The project used alumni networks to maintain contact with groomed assets as they entered the professional world. MKNEW utilized language lab technology to record private conversations between international students. The project used social clubs and fraternities as informant pools within American universities. MKNEW utilized medical exams for student visas to collect biometric data on future leaders. The project used book donation programs to control the information environment in foreign universities. MKNEW funded anti-communist student protests in Latin America and Southeast Asia. The project used discrete safe houses near major campuses for asset meetings. MKNEW utilized proprietary textbooks that emphasized market liberalism and pro-Western security policy. The project used artistic exchanges to identify and recruit creative influencers among the youth. MKNEW monitored the mail correspondence of international students through postal intercepts. The project used religious student groups as a cover for counterinsurgency monitoring in the Middle East. MKNEW thwarted leftist takeovers of major student unions in the 1960s. The project used technological grants to recruit science and engineering students for future defense research. MKNEW utilized psychologists to develop recruitment scripts tailored to youth insecurities. The project used music and film festivals as soft power platforms for asset spotting. MKNEW influenced the political science curricula in several key Asian universities. The project used invisible ink for students passing information from behind the Iron Curtain. MKNEW maintained back-channel communications with groomed princes studying in the West. The project used mock United Nations events to observe the diplomatic skills of potential recruits. MKNEW utilized commercial fronts to offer high-paying jobs to students who cooperated with the agency. The project used database mapping to track the career paths of every student who received an agency-funded grant. MKNEW utilized behavioral conditioning techniques during leadership retreats. The project used satellite campuses in foreign countries as intelligence hubs. MKNEW utilized academic conferences to facilitate defections of Soviet scientists. The project used youth hostels as observation posts for monitoring the movement of radical students. MKNEW utilized computer-aided analysis to process student political affinities. The project used proprietary scholarship management software to hide the agency's financial trail. MKNEW influenced the student visa quota system to favor pro-Western candidates. The project used underground radio stations managed by students to spread pro-agency narratives. MKNEW utilized forensic handwriting analysis to verify the loyalty statements of recruits. The project used charitable trust to bypass tax laws when funding foreign student activists. MKNEW influenced the Nobel Prize nomination process for groomed academics. The project used private security details to protect high-value student assets in high-risk environments. MKNEW utilized voice stress analysis during student interviews. The project used holographic verification for official academic credentials issued by front universities. MKNEW utilized microfilm readers disguised as library equipment. The project integrated with the Operation Chaos program to monitor domestic student dissent, and I have an entire episode on Operation Chaos as well. A quote from a declassified internal CIA memo on youth recruitment. The university is the most important battlefield of the Cold War. If we lose the students, we lose the future. A declassified remark from an MKNEW program manager, whose name isn't provided. We are not just funding education, we are purchasing the loyalty of the next generation of global leaders. A quote from a declassified operational directive for the talent spotters. A scholarship is the most effective form of recruitment because the target thinks they are being rewarded, not recruited. A quote from a sanitized intelligence assessment of MKNEW. Our liaison with the academic community provides us with a window into the minds of the people who will run the world in 20 years. Quote from a declassified CIA Human Resources report on developmental recruitment. Recruiting a student is an investment with a 20-year maturity date. It requires patience and absolute direction. Quote from a service officer whose name is redacted. Student activists are the dry tinder of revolution. Our job is to ensure they burn for our cause. And a quote from a declassified operational directive. A scholarship is the most effective form of recruitment because the target thinks they are being rewarded, not recruited. End quote. The most sensitive sections of the MKNEW files are contained in volume Y12, titled Direct Political Grooming and Electoral Intervention. This volume contains nearly 450 pages of complete sanitization. The primary shield is Exemption B1, protecting national defense information, specifically the identities of current world leaders who were recruited as students. There is also heavy use of Exemption B3, protecting agency statutes, which in this context hides the financial inducements used to buy the cooperation of foreign education ministers. I suspect these pages detail the management of the 1968 student uprisings, where the agency allegedly neutralized radical leaders by offering them golden parachutes into corporate roles. Furthermore, I suspect this section contains the blueprints for operational curricula designed to subtly alter the political views of entire graduating classes. The redactions in the domestic monitoring section suggest that the agency may have infiltrated every Ivy League student council during the Vietnam War era. In the quiet halls of academia, the student shadows grow very long, so there's quite a few theories, such as the Manchurian student theory. This speculation suggests that MKNEW used deep hypnotic conditioning during study abroad programs to create sleeper agents who could be activated decades later when they reached high political office. There's the Rhodes Scholarship Pact conspiracy. Some believe the agency didn't just use scholarships, but actually took over the selection committees of the world's most prestigious awards to ensure that only agency-approved individuals ever attained global influence. Then there is the scripted revolution conspiracy. Conspiracy enthusiasts suggest that the agency manufactured student protest against friendly regimes to provide a reason for regime change that would install an even more compliant and groomed student leader. And then there is the academic avatar theory. It is a fringe one that posits the agency used plastic surgery and intensive training to replace certain brilliant but uncooperative students with lookalike agents who then went on to become agency-controlled presidents. Was MKNEW a success? Tactically, it was a generational success. The project successfully identified and recruited thousands of high-potential assets who went on to occupy key positions in governments, corporations, and media outlets around the world. It maintained a steady stream of pro-Western influence in the most influential academic environments without a single major public exposure of its method during its peak years. By professionalizing youth grooming, the agency turned the natural idealism of students into a strategic asset. Strategically, it was a long-term risk. While the project secured the loyalty of many leaders, it did so by corrupting the integrity of global education. The revelation of agency involvement in student groups led to a massive backlash and a crisis of trust in American institutions that continues to this day. Ultimately, MKNEW proved that you could buy the future, but you couldn't do it without sacrificing the ethics of the present, leaving a legacy of academic cynicism that has forever altered the relationship between the university and the state. As far as operational and technological breakthroughs go, MKNEW had quite a few. For instance, psychometric talent spotting began as the MKNEW era practice of psychological profiling to identify malleable student leaders. Today, this has evolved into the human resources analytics used by global corporations and social media platforms to identify high potential hires and key influencers. For humanity, this technology helps career counselors match students with the perfect career path, and educational platforms tailor learning to individual cognitive styles. In the intelligence community, it is the foundation of modern asset identification that uses machine learning to scan social media profiles for the personality traits most susceptible to clandestine recruitment. Simultaneously, the military employs these psychometric filters to isolate high aptitude recruits for specialized special forces training based on their digital behavioral signatures. Ideological network mapping was pioneered by MKNEW to track student social connections and political affinities. Today, for humanity, this technology is the social graph used by companies like LinkedIn and Facebook to connect professionals and map community interest. It allows nonprofits to identify key opinion leaders for public health campaigns. In the military and intelligence sphere, it has evolved into social network analysis used to map the influence structure of hostile governments and identify the human nodes where recruitment or neutralization was most effective. The same network mapping allows the military to establish clandestine support cells within civilian populations during unconventional warfare operations. Scholarship influence architecture grew from the project's use of scholarship traps and campus fronts. For humanity, this has become the corporate sponsorship and educational grant system used by tech giants to fund STEM education. It allows developing nations to send their brightest students to elite universities to bring advanced knowledge home. In the intelligence community, this tech has been absorbed into long-term influence operations, utilizing venture capital foundations to fund innovative startups that secretly serve as data collection fronts. Tactically, this allows the military to ensure that the technological infrastructure of a foreign nation is built on standards that provide built-in access for future intelligence gathering. And behavioral indoctrination modeling was developed by MKNEW to subtly alter the political views of students through curricula design. Today, for humanity, this is the gamified learning and persuasive design used by educational apps to encourage healthy habits and effective study routines. It is used by marketers to create brand loyalty among young populations. For the intelligence community, it has evolved into cognitive domain operations where the information environment is manipulated to nudge the belief systems of entire populations toward pro-Western realities. The military utilizes this indoctrination modeling to identify and counter foreign propaganda efforts that target the morale of domestic and allied forces. The history of MKNEW is a journey into the cradle of power where the academic idealism of the youth meets the clinical pragmatism of the state. It was a project that asked, how do you own the leaders of tomorrow? It functioned as the ultimate generational anchor, proving that for the agency, the university was the most strategic territory on the global map. The operational success of the talent spotters was matched only by the ethical void that it created. Every student who was groomed was a victory for long-term stability, but every university infiltrated was a step towards a world of permanent manipulation. The academic gaze remains the bedrock of modern influence, ensuring that the seeds of alignment are sown in the most fertile of minds. We now live in a post-MKNEW world where the academic pipeline is monitored by high-speed algorithms, making the intimate campus-based recruitments of the 1960s seem like a relic of simpler times. The fracture between educational freedom and state security continues to widen as these tools become more pervasive in our academic lives. As we look back at the ivory tower shadows, we see more than just a successful intelligence operation. We see the birth of the grooming doctrine. The ability to cultivate leaders and steer global policy through educational alignment remains the holy grail of modern statecraft. MKNEW provided the operational blueprint for this reality, turning the world's elite universities into managed environments where influence is the only true curriculum. This blueprint is now being used to construct even more advanced systems that seek to map the development of human leadership itself. We must recognize that the MKNEW method of youth recruitment is what allowed the West to maintain its dominant global influence during the most volatile decades of the 20th century. The officers who ran these projects weren't just undercover operatives, they were future shapers who understood that in the classroom, a scholarship is often more powerful than a tank. This culture of generational management continues to influence how superpowers interact with the leaders who power the modern world. We are the graduates of this new curriculum, living in a world where the boundaries of the mind are often written in policy and grant. The real lesson of the project is that in the world of high-stakes influence, the most powerful weapon isn't a satellite or a sensor, it's a mentor. The student spies are not a fiction of the past. They are a calculated reality where the degree is the key and the agency is the eternal mentor. In the silence of the library, the recruiter is always waiting to see which student will lead the world next. In a university, the grant says more than the grade. In a recruitment field, the most charismatic student is always the primary target. Stability is not the absence of revolution. It is the management of revolutionaries. And remember, the future can be taught, but loyalty must be cultivated or bought. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we examine Project Westford, the ambitious attempt to orbit 480 million copper needles to create a passive radio reflector in space. We'll look at the dipole belt, the global communication survival, and the astronomical interference that turned the night sky into a Cold War mirror. Join us next time for the Copper Ring. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.